Well, good afternoon, YouTube, and welcome back to Fat Cat Collections. And today I'm excited to share with you guys a product that Acoustik sent me for review several months ago. And the weather's been pretty horrible here and haven't had a chance to really install it. Well, I insured one of my other vehicles a couple weeks ago, and I was able to put the deck in. So I want to go ahead and show you this new stereo by Acoustik. Let's check it out. So this is the ride it went in. This is my 2006 Solara. I absolutely love this car. Let me just get off the camera here. Enough about me. Let me show you guys. And you guys can check out my other video on this vehicle, and after I detail it, I'm going to re-record, but I've done some nice things to it. Really happy with the way it turned out. I've had it for quite some time now and only have 45,000 miles on it. As far as the stereo is concerned in this vehicle, I'm running just the front soundstage with 6.5-inch MB quartz, 6.5-inch component system, MB quartz tweeter in the dash, 6x9 in the door, and then of course there is I'll show you the system. And this video isn't going to be about the system. I'm not even going to really crank it up or anything like that, because you can't really tell on a YouTube video. There's always these knuckleheads who think you can tell what a system sounds like based on a YouTube video, and you really can't. So that's the box me and my dad built. And I'm not going to show you the amp rack right now, because there's really no point. This is about this bad boy right here. And this is the Acoustik PD1032B. And what this is it's one of these new decks that allows you to have this huge, in this particular case, a 10.1-inch touchscreen on the front of your deck being installed in a standard double DIN opening. Now, I was going to put this deck in my Honda, but the way the Honda was, it was not quite as wide, and it would be kind of near my knee, and I opted just to put it in this car. I may end up changing it around at a later date, not really sure, but for now, I wanted to get the deck in and just kind of, play with it for a couple weeks and see if it's something I'm going to keep in the car permanently. I had a double DIN Pioneer in this car, and I was very happy with it. So let me just, I'll go ahead and turn it on first, and then I'll talk a little about some of the things that I like about it and some of the things that I don't like about it. So let me see if I can get, I don't want to just point you guys at the stereo because that's kind of boring, right? So, alright, so let me go ahead and start the car up here. So first and foremost, the deck turns on, like any other deck. And this is the boot up. It's pretty quick. Alright, let me just turn on the volume there. So basically this is what you're going to see when you hook this deck up. One thing I do like about this deck is that, and I'm going to pop the faceplate off here, okay? You can see the boot up time was very fast, and it accessed the media card slot very quickly. Now that's going to depend on how much media you have on there. Let me just pop this off. There's a button on top. You just basically pop the screen off and back, and it comes with a protective sleeve. You can put this in. Then, of course, on the dash here, now you'll notice in my case, and every vehicle is going to be different. In my case, the double DIN that was in here looked really nice, but I wanted to try this out and see what I was going to, whether I was going to like it or not, and just see, just kind of, how it worked. And one thing I like about this particular deck is that although I had to install it a little bit further out, and your situation could be different, I have my controls right here. And luckily, my dashboard is pretty minimal when it comes to buttons and whistles, and I mean, you pretty much have a basic climate control, which is something I really like. I prefer to have something simple like this as opposed to some of those climate controls with all the different, temperature readings, and I prefer stuff like this. There's less to go wrong, and for me, it's easy enough just to turn up the controls. The deck does overhang a little bit. It would have been nice if they had the option on this deck to reverse the screen, where you could have it, instead of being overhanging down low, it could be up here like this. This would have been a much nicer setup. So something to consider if you're looking to get a deck like this is it's going to depend on your setup. Of course, the heating vents will be blowing on the back of the deck, but this is a summer car. I don't really, the heat's not really on all that much, but that's kind of a toss-up when you have something this large. As far as the screen is concerned, you have your push button release on top, and of course you have your controls on top, your microphone. You have your mute button, your mode, and your volume up and down. And of course, underneath here, you have your contacts in the back, and then you have a auxiliary in, audio auxiliary in, and you have a USB port, which I have a very small, low-profile SanDisk card. One thing I really like that my Pioneer doesn't have is that it actually has a media card slot as well. So on this particular one here, I'm actually just running a micro SD card with an adapter. and so you can have more music on there. So this particular stereo has the ability to have up to about 64 gigs of storage for any kind of media you might be playing on it. You also have your DVD slot right here for your DVD. The only downside to this deck is on their website, it actually says it's a motorized face. It's not. There is no adjustment on this particular model, which was kind of a little bit of a letdown, which made me have to install this out a little bit more than you'd normally have to do to clear the vents. I figured I can kind of install it a little more flush and then kind of tilt it out, but this is the best way I could do, the easiest way I could do to install this where it was going to clear everything. So if you do want to access the DVD slot, you do have to remove the faceplate. It does not drop down, so that's kind of a drawback, but it's less to go wrong as well. Let me go ahead and put this back on. You do have an anti-theft light, which is flashing us right there. Pop it on, real simple. You just line up the lower tabs and you push, and that's it, it's on. So let's go over to a couple of the, this got boot up again here. I'm just going to walk you through the menu. This thing is a very basic deck, and you know, I love the fact that you have a big screen. If you want to go back to the home button, you hit home. And of course we have your media card slot, right? Your media card, if you want to access media on the card, you'd press this button, which is what we just had it on. It's got to go over to your media card, which is behind the dash, behind the screen I showed you before. Back to home. If you want to access the radio, you have your radio button here, and it's going to pull up your local stations. It's going to have all the information as well, which is something that my Pioneer surprisingly didn't do as well as this does. FM, AM, some presets, very basic on your controls. I don't use radio all that much, but you have your disc. If you want to go ahead and pop in and have your disc in there, and I already have a Pink Floyd DVD in there already, and it's loading as we can see. It does come with a remote as well, which is odd. They put tilt on the remote as well, but it does not have that. Pretty basic remote, but it serves a purpose. So you have a DVD playing, you can go back to home, of course. Bluetooth auxiliary in, you have AV in, so if you want to hook up a separate DVD player or separate source unit to this, you can. USB and your time. I'm just going to go ahead and click, oops, we want to go back home. Now I'm just going to go ahead and click USB, and I have probably about, I don't know, maybe 10 gigs of music on here, and we'll see how quick it loads. And my Pioneer took at least a couple minutes to actually load up a USB drive with, again, 32 gig. This is a lot quicker than my Pioneer deck. I guess the technology's gotten better where it accesses the information a lot quicker. So you got your USB and you have your media. And your information as far as the track. Now let's talk about what I don't like about it. EQ, very basic, bass and treble. That's it. Balance and fader, very, very basic. If you want to go over to finding the track, you can do the intro of the track. You can you know, just like any other deck, they make it very simple for repeat album. Mute buttons right here, and then your buttons. Now, let's talk about playing audio, whether it be on USB or the actual card. What I don't like about it is if you're playing a song, and right now we have this Gorilla Zoe on, right? If I want to go, it's almost at the end. If I want to go back to it and start over, it goes to the previous song. And that's something I've never seen on a deck before, ever. So if you want to listen to it, you have to go back and then go forward, which is really weird to me that they did it that way. If you want to go to the next song, you just advance like you normally would, but going back again, forward, back, forward, and back. But if you want to go back to the beginning again, it's got to take you to the previous track. So you have to move forward. So that's kind of an odd thing that I really don't like about this particular deck. The other thing is the minimal controls. That's kind of a little bit of a bummer because you don't have a lot of control on this as far as your audio. Not that it's a big deal. You know, I'm running separate amps, of course. I can dial it in at the amp, but it's just kind of a feature that I wish they would have included a little more. Other thing is when you find the files when you're looking at a USB, that you don't get this big giant screen, hardly gets you any information. So if I want to go back, I don't have a lot of information as far as the name of the album. It cuts off. So welcome to T. I don't even know what that is. And unfortunately, if you keep going back, it takes you to, I have this set up as in a folder. So each one of these, you have Drew Hill and let's see here. Let's see, Gorilla Zoe. So what's happening here is that on in my Pioneer with this same USB card or USB drive, I can click Gorilla Zoe, and it's going to be able to scroll down to each album. With this, it's taking every single Gorilla Zoe album, every single Gucci album. It's not compiling it under the main folder where you can see the name of the albums. It's putting it all under. So if I want to listen to Gucci Mane, I have to know the name of the album that I want to listen to. And that's kind of a drawback to this. Something I really don't like is how they did the menu setup on this. I've never seen that done before. Again, Murder Was the Case, like all these different albums here, I have to scroll down. Now if we go back, whoops, if it lets us go back. See, and here's the other thing too. It says right here, you would think that we're looking under the Gorilla Zoe folder. We're just looking at the last one I pressed. What's playing on the actual CD player or the media player right now. All these are not Gorilla Zoe albums. So if I go down here, and let's just see if I get Billy Idol. Let's just click Billy Idol, and I play Billy Idol. Now, of course, if I go back, it just still says Billy Idol, but these are all the songs. See, it doesn't even make any sense to me. So this is the last album we left off on, but if I go back and say Beck, right? Well, I guess that's not really true, I guess. Anyway, the point being is that it's going to show you what album you pressed, but then you have to know the name of the album. So if I want to listen to, like I said, I know Collar Grove is that 2 Chainz and Lil Wayne album. I have to know the name of the album, and a lot of times I don't know the name of the albums. I just kind of pick an artist and see the name, and I'm like, oh, I kind of feel like listening to that. So that's kind of the downside of this. Now, what I could do is I can rename all the folders, Beck / Stray, kind of like this one is actually labeled. But like this here, this is a different, like here, for instance, Collar Grove. I can actually name that 2 Chainz, Lil Wayne, Collar Grove. But then we're going to run out of room there. So that's kind of a downside to this as well. Video, I tried playing MP4V. It would not recognize that file. I'm not really sure why. I have to mess around a little bit more, but I'm not too concerned playing movies. I really wanted a nice fully featured menu to be able to select the songs I want to play, and my Pioneer does it way better. Now, the other thing about this too, if we go home again, and we go over to settings, very minimal settings. You have sound, EQ, which is just the bass and treble, loudness, loud level, subwoofer on or off, a couple different subwoofer frequencies. I had the subwoofer maxed on the level. It's nowhere near as loud as my Pioneer was, and it's still 2 volt pre-outs on this and the Pioneer, so not really sure what that's all about. Again, every deck's a little different. You have to tune every deck individually, but I will have to turn my gains up on my amp more with this particular stereo than I ever had my Pioneer, so that's the only downside to this. The other downside to it, although you have this big beautiful display, it doesn't do anything. You can't change any of this. You can't put on a picture. You can't change the background. You can't change the color. Nothing. It's pretty much what you see is what you get here. And that's kind of the downside to this. Whereas you have this big, beautiful screen, it doesn't do anything. The other thing I don't like is your volume control. The only volume control is on top of the deck. And that's something, I don't mind having a push button, but I wish it would have had a volume control, a digital volume control on the screen as well. And that's something that's just kind of hard to get used to because I've never actually... it's kind of an odd spot to put it, but that's just personal preference. It's still functional, it still works, but that's my gripe with this deck, is that it's a big, beautiful deck, big, huge screen, but unless you're going to be watching videos on it, or movies, it's kind of pointless. And, I don't know if I'll end up keeping this in the car, but if you are, I think it looks pretty cool. It looks like one of the modern day, some of the Mercedes that have the big giant screens in them. I think it's kind of cool. It does work, it's functional, it's fast, but again, and it doesn't cover my controls too bad, not enough to where it really bothers me, but I just wish it would have had, some customization, change the menus, change the colors, maybe a little bit of a graphic equalizer, spectrum analyzer. Like my Pioneer, it has, it's smaller, but it's got, you can adjust the colors of the buttons, you can, you can make it match your dash. So when I have that in here, I have like the power buttons matching my amber needles, and then the whole interior is green, so it matches that. So that's the only downside to this deck, is that this big, beautiful screen doesn't really do much, unless, of course, you're going to watch a movie. If you're going to incorporate this into a car where you're going to be watching movies in it for your passengers or whatnot, your backup cam, then that's all great. You can, it's definitely going to be a big, beautiful screen, but it doesn't really do all that much. It does have plenty of power. If you're going to hook up speakers to it. It does have Bluetooth as well, so if you want to make a call, you can do that with it. You go over to Bluetooth, and here's your interface or your menu with the Bluetooth. Again, it says not connected. My phone is in the house right now. I haven't tested making a call yet. It has a built-in microphone, whereas my Pioneer has a separate wire microphone up here I've placed in the corner. You know what, I'm just not sure. I don't really take a lot of phone calls while driving, but it is a feature that it has. I'm sure it works fine. It's just something I have to mess around with a little more. But again, this is your menu, and pretty much if you're listening to audio like I do, this is pretty much what you're going to see the entire time. That's it. So, as far as, you know, that way it sounds, I can't really notice any audible difference between this and my Pioneer, other than the fact that, you know, where it actually clips is going to be different, so the amps have to be tuned to the deck. But I will have to turn up, to get the same amount of bass out of this deck, I'm going to have to turn up the gains on my amplifier. So that's a little bit surprising. I thought it'd be pretty consistent, but there is quite a bit of a difference there. Where this thing with the Pioneer, I mean, it slams. With this, it's you definitely have to turn the bass up a lot more, where the other one you didn't have to do that. So, but that's about it, folks. That's the deck right there. Power Acoustik BD1032, PD1032B. Let me know what you guys think about this deck. I mean, I think it's pretty cool looking. It doesn't look bad. Again, one thing I just want to show you real quick is they gave you that sleeve. And when you install a deck like this, that you have to put out a little bit. Hopefully you can see this.